So tell us a little bit about Time Investigators.
Okay, so Time Investigators turns you, the player, into a time investigator, stepping back in time to solve one of history's greatest mysteries. So this first game, this inaugural game, it's about the mysterious sinking of the Mary Rose. The Mary Rose was Henry VIII. Everyone knows Henry VIII for his 6 wives, but Mary Rose was not one of his 6 wives. She was his favorite warship, and she sank in very mysterious circumstances in the English Channel in 1545. With 500 sailors and soldiers on board. Unfortunately, only about 25 of whom survived. So this game, you step back onto the ship to interrogate like the people on board and kind of witness things and kind of work out for yourself why she might have sank.
So you have a lot of experience in the sort of like the virtual reality in the gaming industry. Tell us why you picked this historical piece to be part of the Time Investigators.
Right, so I'm not so much in the gaming industry. I'm certainly sort of more in the immersive narrative storytelling space. So telling stories in VR has been something that I've done quite a lot of. This was actually my first AR project and my first gaming project. And the reason that it's on kind of this historical subject matter was really just kind of a passion of mine. I love history, and I think most people don't realize how fascinating and how fun it can actually be, and that it's not kind of this boring, dry subject. It's just about, how it's told. I mean, some of these stories are like the most dramatic stories, but they just need to be told in the right way. Okay, well, yeah, another part of the reason was that, when COVID hit, cultural heritage sites in the UK, like we've obviously got an amazing amount of cultural heritage, like Tower of London, all these amazing sites, but no one was visiting. Those places were really suffering. So it was like a chance to provide something really exciting to make it worthwhile for people to come back and see and experience stuff in a different way to the way that they'd experienced it before. So, and I think, the photorealistic characters that come to life and the scent are 2 really like innovative ways of doing that people just hadn't seen before. So it helped encourage people back.
So bring us to one of these pictures here and briefly tell us a little bit about that.
Tell you about the cook. Okay, this was the Mary Rose cook. They know, they've analysed his bones and his skeleton. Like, the reason they know he was the cook is because of where he was found, like deep in the hold, which is where all of the cooking kind of took place, where the huge cauldrons were. Also, they know from the damage to his bones that he spent a lot of his time stooped over, like you would over a kind of cooking pot. He also didn't have very many teeth, so he didn't take great care of his teeth. And we know all of this because they found his skeleton. Obviously, they found his skull. This was a recreation of his skull, the same way they do with murder victims. They recreated how these men would have looked. And we know he was from the West Country of the UK, but actually it's really interesting because most people think of Tudor England as a very white, homogenous society, but we know that at least a third of the crew on the Mary Rose were actually not of white English descent. They were Mediterraneans, North Africans, and one of the key characters in the game is a young North African man who was on board. And we thought that was really important as well, because obviously we've got a really multicultural society today, like here in the US, also in the UK, and we want people to feel part of that history in a way, that they haven't necessarily done. Like you see the number of, the diversity represented in people that come to museums versus the diversity of society is really limited. And we want to change that also with the game by telling some of those more diverse stories as well.
So this game, this is very much like a choose your own adventure, but with a lot of mystery to it as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I would say perhaps slightly less choose your own adventure in the sense that it's a linear narrative. You do choose in the sense that you choose which of the 2 key characters you're going to play as, so you discover slightly different things depending on who you play as. We did it like that because it's primarily designed as a family game, and we did some research and families seem to want to compete against each other. So if they got to play on different sides of the game, there was that element of competition. So that's but once you're into the game, you're kind of largely following a kind of linear narrative. You can choose the order in which you're doing it, and obviously you've chosen your character, but the things you're discovering and how well you then solve the mystery at the end has more to do with how much you were paying attention as anything, less than necessarily the choose your own adventure aspect, I think. But yeah.
And how does it feel to be part of South by Southwest this year?
Oh, it's great. I mean, I love South by. This is my first time in the Innovation Awards. I have presented work in the XR, the Immersive Arcade, 3 or 4 times before, and once in the film sort of section. But what I love about South by is, its size, but not just the size for being large, but more because there's such an amazing diversity of like people, projects. Like, if you're a creative person and you've got this cauldron of creative ideas you draw upon, I feel like whenever I've been to South by, like that cauldron is kind of refilled. It's a great event.
Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.